Okay, so a little quiz here, a little clicker quiz to see, do you get what this what this standard deviation refers to?
How spread out.
So, question one, which of these two histograms shows data with the lowest standard deviation? And then obviously question two asks, which one has the highest standard deviation? I'll give you a second. Okay, how did we do? Correct answer is B. B, Mr. Unplugged.
I got it right.
B. Why is it B? Low standard deviation means that it is consistent data. Look at this one. This one's got 20 marks right in the middle. Very few out on the ends. This one's got 16 in the middle, quite a few, but more out on the wings, right? When it's high up like that, that is low standard deviation. When it's more spread out like that, high standard deviation. Question two. What is the answer? Let's just see here.
B.
Correct answer is B. B has the higher standard deviation. Now, let's just go. This one's a little harder. I will grant you that. This one is a standard sort of curve. It's pretty high in the middle, so it's got reasonably low standard deviation, although it does have a little bit out on the wings here. This one, however, because it's got this sort of shape to it, right? What's the average likely to be?
Somewhere in between.
Like this one, there's a lot right there, right? There's a lot right there. The average is likely to be probably somewhere about there, right? Roughly, because there's more 14s, right? So that means, but there's still quite a few out here to the side, right? I'm guessing that the actual standard deviations here are actually very close to one another, reasonably close. This is almost an unfair question, okay? Yeah, well, I'm not marking or anything, but in this case here, you got to think things through a bit, okay? This one's got quite a few out to the side here. It doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical to be a high standard deviation or low. Okay, so yeah, don't worry. If you didn't get that one right, don't worry about that. Next question. Data that is very consistent has a low standard deviation. True or false? Data that is very consistent has a low standard deviation. Means they're all pretty close to the same. Low. Don't know, Lacey?
Just waiting for one.
Very consistent. Low standard deviation. No, I'm not pressuring you. Oh, did you? I apologize. The correct answer is true. Yes, that is the definition of low standard deviation. Very consistent. All very close to the same.
We still haven't had 100% yet.
Okay. All very close. All the numbers are almost identical, right? Like, for example, if we took everyone's age in the room and it was all 17, what would the standard deviation be? No. 0. Because they are all the same. There is no differing from the mean. If everyone's age is 17, what's the average age? 17. No one is different, so there's 0 is the standard deviation.
Wouldn't our answers for this be a low standard deviation? Because
Most people pick true, correct. There you go.
It's
good. Okay. If you went to the golf course and recorded all the people's scores, on what day would you expect a higher standard deviation? Would you expect, I didn't say higher score, Rowan. Thank you for that sexist comment. Didn't say higher score. Higher standard deviation. Actually, that brings me to a good point. We'll come back to that, Ron. So, would you expect higher standard deviation on the men's club championship day, or would you expect it on a Wednesday when 75% off for non-members? Which day would you expect a
That question answers itself.
higher standard deviation?
You'll see, man. You'll see.
I have to go where? men's club champion. You're looking for a higher.
Higher standard deviation, not higher scores.
Yeah,
Not higher scores.
I messed up. Go back. So you messed up?
Not higher scores, higher standard deviation. Correct answer is? You weren't done?
No.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Correct answer is B.
No.
Why, Luke, tell us why you would expect a higher standard deviation when it's 75% off.
Because non-members, like any non-member can come in and shoot whatever they want. So that means they can go all the way up and down the scores. Everything.
Okay, on men's club championship day, you would expect all of the golfers to be,
Everyone will be shooting very, very close because they're like,
you would expect the good golfers, the guys that are serious about golf, to be playing, right? You would expect the scores to be close together. On a day when it's 75% off for non-members, you would expect the hackers out there,
exactly, yeah.
right? The guys that play golf twice a year that might shoot like 1,000. Something like that, right? So yes, B is definitely correct answer.
Okay, the thing is just kind of
No.
gave the answer.
Oh yeah? Let's talk about Rowan's comment. Rowan said, "Oh, ladies' night." Ooh.
That was pretty.
But what he was commenting on was ladies' night, the scores is what you were commenting on, right? So now, would you expect on men's night, now I might be making a sexist comment here, but I think we could probably safely agree that the average score on men's night would likely be lower than the average score on ladies' night.
It's okay to make that comment because in golf they do separate, like say, the tee box
That's
and men's.
That's true.
It wouldn't be
Okay,
sexist.
so without trying to offend any of the ladies, let's assume that the men's night score,
Let's be honest. I can't-
the men's night, we'll say the average score might be 80. We'll say 80. Okay, and we'll say the ladies' night, the average score, we'll make it 85. Okay, without trying to be sexist. Now, does that say anything about the standard deviation?
Yes.
Like, could the ladies' standard deviation be low, and could the men's standard deviation be high?
Yes.
Certainly, that could happen, right? What would it mean if the men's score was 80 and the standard deviation was high? What would that mean out on the golf course?
Two good golfers.
It'd mean there'd be some really good golfers and some really bad ones, but most of them are around 80, right? But if the ladies' score average score was 85 and it was low standard deviation, what would that mean? Most of the ladies would shoot close to 85. Their best golfers wouldn't be that much better than their worst golfers. Now, that's not to say that's what happens out there, but that's, if you were given that situation, that's what it would be, right? So you got to get that out of your head. Just because the standard deviation is high doesn't mean that the number is high, right? The data numbers. It just means how spread out is that data. Oh, that's all I have. Are you upset?
Oh, I only was 35%.
What does it say?
Here's what I want you to do.
Doesn't
This will really determine if you understand standard deviation, okay? You can work with a partner if you want, or if you want to work on your own. I would like you to write a question similar to this one or this one. Oh no, I guess it's just this one. I would like you to write a question like that, cannot involve golf.
a real world.
I want you to write a real world question with two possible answers. You can pick higher or lower standard deviation, and then we're going to answer it as a class. Okay, go ahead.
On another note, did Jory show you that video of like the
We need two sets of data. It doesn't have to be related to sports. It could be anything. It could be a measurement, okay? For example, I have a set of clickers here. They're all pretty much the same, right? Yours is the same as the one I have and everyone else, right? So let's say I measure the mass of 30 clickers in grams. Okay, I measure the mass of 30 clickers in grams. Then I decide to measure the mass of 30 people in kilograms. Which one would you expect to have the higher standard deviation?
I like it.
Which group of data would have the higher standard deviation? The mass of 30 clickers
Which is, so higher means it's more spread out, right? Or-
Higher means it's more spread out.
So between the clickers and the people have higher. Right?
Would the people have the higher standard deviation? Is it because people weigh more than clickers?
No.
It's got nothing to do with that. What does it have to do with?
Because they always.
People come in different sizes. Clickers come in one size. That size, right? So which one would have the higher standard deviation? Higher, lower. So think about something that you could measure or score, something like that. One that is kind of always the same, and one that tends to be different.
I'm the lightest. It can be like a really easy question to answer.
Sure, I don't care. But making up a question will show me that you really get it.
That math, to rest